What we did was we recruited over 53,500 women from the Greater Manchester screening population, so that's women aged 47 to 73. We collected information on breast cancer risks, family history of breast cancer, when they had their children, taking of HRT, when they had their menopause, and incorporated that with features from the mammogram. And we know that the dense areas on the mammograms, which represent the glandular tissue, which is the tissue at risk of breast cancer, can represent risky areas. So the more dense the tissue on the mammogram, the more risk. Incorporating those two together, so the risks from the density and the risks from the other factors, we can identify women at substantially greater risk than the general population. They're not only at greater risk of developing breast cancer every year, but they're twice as likely to get cancers that are at a higher stage, that have either spread to the lymph nodes or are much bigger. Already NICE guidelines actually suggest annual screening for women with an 8% risk of developing breast cancer in the next 10 years. So that's already guidance. The problem is that actually most women at high risk don't even know they're high risk, so they don't know to come forward. So this is a way of us identifying women as they attend for screening, filling in a questionnaire, looking at their density, and actually we can identify around 2.5% of the population that would qualify for annual screening up to the age of 60 years. We used in this study something called a visual assessment score, which is essentially a radiologist or a mammogram reader just marking across a continuous scale somewhere between 0 and 100, and they just eyeball the mammogram. But now we have automatic measures of density, and we can actually assess that automatically. So it would happen immediately. They have their mammogram from a digital mammogram, which nearly everywhere now has, and it would come out with a percentage density that could then be immediately included in a risk algorithm with the other risk factors. I think there's more research needed before we can say definitively that everything should move straight away to this risk assessment. We need to know how women respond to being told they're high risk. And so there is more research to do. But if women want to know their risks, there are now ways of incorporating risks together. And if you are high risk, it's likely that you would benefit from more frequent screening. In other countries, actually, they might save, because they could move 70 to 75% of the population to 3-yearly screening, which is what we do in the UK. We're the only country really in the world that has a national program every 3 years. You could argue, and again this is a controversial area, that there are some women at so low risk that they don't actually benefit from screening, that the risks of diagnosing pre-cancers and cancers at very low stage actually outweighs the benefits of picking up cancers that would actually save their lives. So, but that's a difficult one as well, because you've got to persuade women that actually they don't need screening. The bottom line is that we are not a long way away from developing stratified screening, where we don't just screen unintelligently from a woman's age, we actually incorporate all of the risk factors and actually screen people more frequently if they're high risk. They're more at risk not only of getting cancer but of getting higher stage cancers, and potentially for many countries in Europe they can relax their screening in their lower and average risk groups, and maybe there is still a group that we can pick out of maybe 2.5–3% of the population who actually don't really need screening at all.